Get the microphone nice and close. And then we change the stream info to 15 minutes of hanging out while into the Betweenlands. Done. Okay, sending invites. Spam, spam, spam. Okay, so the idea is we're going to hang out for 15 minutes before story. Hello, Quill. Welcome and come on in. How are you today? We're going to hang out and do things, and the chat is going to be way over here, so every time I look in that direction, I'm looking at chat. Oh, is that? Hold on. Oh, wait. Okay. This I'm gonna have to try to figure something out because my stream is showing my green screen is not working fully, or at least it's working, but not in the way that I want it to. While at the same time, I am bothering myself with playing a video game while we chat. You do see stuff. That's good. That's good. There we go. And then once the turn of the hour rolls around, we will... How is that not... Hold on. Let me try to figure out what my stream is doing while trying to avoid this guy who's swimming towards me. I don't want him to swim towards me. Can I just leave? I need to find a high place, and then I'll try... Oh, hey, there's another one! Hey, buddy. How you doing? Oh, and a piranha! I'm so happy! So happy to be chased by a piranha while trying to figure out stream stuff. Yep, okay. Okay, if I do this right... yep, hey, buddy. Hey, how's it going? If I do this right, I can do this, and then this, and now I'm 70% safe. Probably. Let's see if this guy can hit me. No, he's just going to hang out and stare at me. Alright, let's figure out what this stream is doing. Yes, piranha. Wait, no. Allow the message. Why would my streams try to stop you from saying piranha? What word is offensive that is also piranha? Okay, anyway. Gotta figure out why my stream is disrespecting... No? Oh, there we go. Okay. Alright. Yay! Oh, now there's two of them hanging around with me. Okay. Alright. We see lots of things all good on this end if that helps. Thank you so much, Quill. I appreciate you. Alright. Where are we? Trying to keep up with everybody. So, let's see. Users in chat. Alexis, hello. Alien Gathering, hello. Cats, hello. Commander Root, hello. Joint Effort, hello. Welcome to all of you. You should say hi. We're starting story time in about 9 minutes. And we're hanging out and chatting while listening to these vile creatures do their thing. And I open up my volume mixer and I turn up. Turn up for what? I wish I could have like my chat overlay on my screen so I don't have to look all the way over there. Headset dug out this week for your computer. Ooh, that sounds wonderful. That sounds absolutely lovely. Okay, there's a piranha. There's hello piranha. I don't want to deal with you right now. I would like to have a safe place to exist. Alright, let's go. Where's my other wood? Where did my other wood go? Who took it from me? Can't believe it wouldn't allow piranha. Honestly, I'm trying to figure out what word it's trying to save us from. Like, is the word piranha that offensive? Maybe it could be. Like, people don't want to think about being eaten alive by skin and flesh and marrow-eating fishies. But I don't know. We are piranha. Yes, I allowed the word, and now anyone can say it. Thank you, Quill. Oh dear. Where's my book? No. I hear that grind. Now, yeah, you get out of here. Get out. Go away. I love these people. They're so great. They're not great. They're offensive, and I need to build a door and close. Nah, haha, they can't open that door. Shrug. Oh, that's too rich. That is just too rich. So, we're gonna do Hansel and Gretel tonight, and it's gonna be something. It's gonna be an interesting story. I'm quite excited for it. We'll be starting in about 7 minutes. You haven't played survival mode since the last time when you died for the first time in like 3 years. Well, let me tell you, if people are interested in me playing 15 minutes of this game while hanging out and chatting as we get ready, you will get to witness survival mode in its most modded way, with Into the Betweenlands terror. Things are not as they seem, and so on and so forth. I'm very excited for being terrified. It's great because it's very what's the word? Aesthetic? I don't think that's the right word. It's very atmospheric. I think atmospheric is the correct word. Because we are going to... I think I've seen some of your art as well, and really enjoyed it. I would love to see more of your art in Minecraft, Quill. That would be wonderful. This is obviously very heavily modded. You see the overworld is in the sky. There's a crack in the sky, and we're able to see that is the overworld. But we are in the swamps of the Betweenlands. I have very little survivability right now. Who else is here, and why aren't they talking? Or am I just not seeing who's in chat? It says 2 viewers, which would be me and you, Quill. So, hello to everyone else. Please come back. I would love your company. The more the merrier. Um, by the way, are you able to hear me well enough over the rain, thunder, and crackling fire? And are you able to hear the crackling fire, rain, and thunder well enough? Good. Good, good, good. Okay. The balance is just right. Oh my goodness, yes! I'm so happy to hear that. That makes me happy. Are you able to hear the birds? Because there are birds. I don't think they're like... I don't think they're supposed to be here, but... sometimes birds are nice to listen to. And... good. Okay. I think. And lastly, are you able to hear, like, my character stepping around? Like, is that not too quiet? Are you able to hear him, like, breaking blocks? Are you able to hear, like, the monsters make their little noises? Not too loud? Should it quiet down a little bit? Ooh. Not too loud, not too quiet. Okay. Very good then. And what is the time? 57. Ooh, we're getting close. So my next question is, let's say, for example, if I was to go into creative and look up, let's say, out like this, which I think the particular location I'm at is kind of boring. But let's say, for example, if I was to put the screen on like this, and then read a story with this as the background, would that be acceptable in comparison to the fireplace we had? Or would it be like too eerie or too like high up, or I don't know. Something like having a background similarly like that. Don't see why not. Well, that's good news for me. We'll try it out for a night, and we'll see what to do. I am thinking about ways to try to get my reading done in a way that doesn't have it look like I'm just staring down the entire stream. Because I'm sure looking at my eyelids is kind of boring, maybe. It's also fine if people close their eyes. It's very fine if people close their eyes. Oop. And just checking on the peoples. Husband says, remind you of someone from the Foo Fighters. Visually? Auditorily? Are we talking about, like, the hair? It's probably the hair, right? A certain someone. And if I get rid of this part of me, hair-wise, would I no longer be part of the Foo Fighters? Thank you. Well, the hour has turned, and as such, so shall our focus turn to story time. He'd come up with something else. Oh no. Well, hopefully all good things. And so we shall go ahead and start. Thank you so much for your company, Quill. And everyone else who's here but hasn't said hello. My gosh, Are we feeling bashful today? No shame in that, by the way. And we shall tell the story of Hansel und Gretel. That's not how I'm going to say it every time. All right. And so we begin. I think the stream picture is not doing what it's supposed to. So let's fix that while we are still early. La 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 la. This is the fit to screen. Hey, I think there we go, maybe. And then we can turn off the window capture. Aha! Better. Looking better by the minute. Alright, let's begin with some background growlings to include. Hansel and Gretel. Off we go, Chapter 9. At the edge of a great forest lived a poor woodcutter with his wife and his 2 children, a boy called Hansel and a girl called Gretel. The family had little to eat at the best of times, and what's more, there was a famine in the land, and often the father couldn't even provide their daily bread. One night, as he lay in bed worrying about their poverty, he sighed and said to his wife, "What's going to become of us? How can we keep the children fed when we haven't any food for ourselves?" "I tell you what," she said, "this is what we'll do. Early tomorrow morning we'll take them into the thickest part of the forest, make them comfortable, light a fire to keep them warm, give them a little bit of bread, and then leave them there by themselves. They won't find their way home, and we'll be rid of them." "No, no, no," said the husband. "I won't do that. Abandon my own children in the forest? Never! Wild animals would tear them to pieces." "You're a fool," said his wife. "If we don't get rid of them, all 4 of us will starve. You may as well start planing the wood for our coffins." She gave him no peace until he gave in. "But I don't like it," he said. "I can't help feeling sorry for them." In the next room the children were awake. They couldn't sleep because they were so hungry, and they heard every word of their stepmother had said. Let's go back a second. Oh, okay, fair. It's their stepmother. Hello, Katsu. I might be able to figure out how to do captions. Are you able to hear me, like, in general? I can probably figure out captions on the after stream. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. Give me a second. We'll figure it out. Okay. Yes. We'll figure it out. But if I need to speak louder, please do let me know. Okay. Gretel wept bitterly and whispered, "Oh, Hansel, it's the end of us." "Hush," said Hansel. "Stop worrying. I know what we can do." As soon as the grown-ups had fallen asleep, Hansel got out of bed, put on his old jacket, opened the lower half of the door, and crept outside. The moon was shining brightly, and the white pebbles in front of the house glittered like silver coins. Hansel crouched down and filled his pockets with as many as he could cram in. Then he went back inside and got into bed and whispered, "Don't worry, Gretel. Go to sleep now. God will look after us. Anyway, I've got a plan." At daybreak, even before the sun had risen, the woman came in and pulled the covers off their beds. "Get up, you layabouts," she said. "We're going into the forest to get some wood." She gave them each a slice of dry bread. "That's your lunch," she said, "and don't gobble it up too soon, because there's nothing else." Gretel put the bread in her apron because Hansel's pockets were full of pebbles. They all set off together into the forest. From time to time Hansel would stop and look back at the house, until finally his father said, "What are you doing, boy? Keep up! Keep up! Use your legs!" "I'm looking at my white kitten," Hansel said. "He's sitting on the roof. He wants to say goodbye to me." "Stupid boy," said the woman. "That's not your kitten. It's the sun shining on the chimney." In fact, Hansel had been dropping the pebbles one by one on the path behind them. He was looking back because he wanted to make sure that they could be seen. When they got to the middle of the forest, their father said, "Go and fetch some kindling. I'll make a fire so you won't freeze." The children gathered some of small twigs, a whole pile of them, and their father set them alight. When the fire was burning well, the woman said, "Make yourselves comfortable, my dears. Lie down by the fire and snuggle up warm. We'll go off and cut some wood now, and when we've finished we'll come and get you." Hansel and Gretel sat down by the fire. When they felt it must be midday, they ate their bread. They could hear the sound of an axe not far away, so they thought their father was nearby. But it wasn't an axe. It was a branch that he'd tied to a dead tree. The wind swung it back and forth, so it knocked on the wood. The children sat there for a long time, and gradually their eyelids began to feel heavy. As the afternoon went past and the light faded, they leaned closer together and fell sound asleep. They awoke to find themselves in darkness. Gretel began to cry. "How can we ever find our way out?" she sobbed. "Wait till the moon comes up," said Hansel. "Then you'll see how my plan will work." When the moon did come up, it was full and brilliant, and the white stones Hansel had dropped shone like newly minted coins. Hand in hand, the two children followed the trail all through the night, and just as dawn was breaking, they arrived at their father's house. The door was locked, so they knocked loudly. When the woman opened it, her eyes opened too, in shock. "You wretched children! You made us so worried!" And she hugged them so tightly they couldn't breathe. "Where did you sleep so long? Why did you sleep so long? We thought you didn't want to come back." And she pinched their cheeks as if she were really glad to see them. When their father came down a moment later, the relief and joy in his face was real, because he hadn't wanted to leave them at all. So that time they were safe, but not long afterwards food was short again, and many people were hungry. One night the children heard the woman say to their father, "It's no good. We've only got half a loaf left, and then we'll all starve. We must get rid of the children and do it properly this time. They must have had some trick before, but if we take them deep enough into the woods, they'll never find their way out." "Oh, I don't like it," said the father. "There's not just wild animals in the forest, you know. There are goblins and witches and Lord knows what. Wouldn't it be better to share the loaf with the children?" "Don't be stupid," said the woman. "Where's the sense in that? You're soft, that's the trouble with you. Soft and stupid." She tore him to shreds with her criticism, and he had no defense. If you've given in once, you have to give in ever after. Hello, Andrina. Welcome in. The children were awake, and they heard the conversation. When the adults were asleep, Hansel got up and tried to go outside again, but the woman had locked the door and hidden the key. Nevertheless, he comforted his sister, when he got back into bed, saying, "Don't worry, Gretel. Go to sleep now. God will protect us." Early next morning the woman came and woke the children as she'd done before, and gave them each a piece of bread, though it was even smaller this time. As they went into the forest, Hansel crumbled his bread up and dropped the crumbs on the path, stopping every so often to make sure he could still see them. "Hansel, keep going," said his father. "Stop looking back all the time." "I was looking at my pigeon sitting on the roof," said Hansel. "She wants to say goodbye to me." "That's not your pigeon, you fool," said the woman. "It's the sun shining on the chimney. Stop dawdling." Hansel didn't look back again, but he kept crumbling up the bread in his pocket and dropping it on the path. The woman made them all walk fast, and they went deeper into the forest than they'd ever gone in all their lives. Finally she said, "This'll do," and once again they made a fire for the children to sit by. "Now don't move," the woman told them. "Sit here and don't budge till we come and get you. We've got enough to worry about with you wandering off. We'll be back in the evening." The children sat there until they felt it must be midday, and then they shared Gretel's little piece of bread, because Hansel had used all his up. Then they fell asleep, and the whole day went by, but no one came for them. It was dark when they woke up. "Hush, don't cry," Hansel said to Gretel. "When the moon comes up, we'll see the crumbs and find our way home." The moon came up, and they began to look for the crumbs, but they couldn't find any. The thousands of birds that fly about in the woods and the fields had pecked them all up. "We'll find our way," said Hansel, but no matter which way they went, they couldn't find the way home. They walked all through the night, and then all through the following day, and still they were lost. They were hungry, too, terribly hungry, because all they'd had to eat was a few berries that they'd found. They were so tired by this time that they lay down under a tree and fell asleep at once, and when they awoke on the third morning and struggled to their feet, they were still lost, and with every step they seemed to be going deeper and deeper into the forest. If they didn't find help soon, they would die. But at midday they saw a little snow-white bird sitting on a branch nearby. It sang so beautifully that they stopped to listen, and when it stretched its wings and flew a little way ahead, they followed it. It perched and sang again, and again flew a little way ahead, moving no faster than they could walk, so that it really seemed to be guiding them. And all of a sudden they found themselves in front of a little house. The bird perched on the roof, and there was something strange about the look of the roof. In fact, "It's made of cake," said Hansel. "And as for the walls, they're made of bread," said Gretel. And as for the windows, they were made of sugar. The poor children were so hungry that they didn't even think of knocking at the door and asking permission. Hansel broke off a piece of roof, and Gretel knocked through a window, and they sat down right where they were and started to eat at once. After a few good mouthfuls, they heard a soft voice from inside. "Nibble, nibble, little mouse, who's that nibbling at my house?" The children answered, "The wind so wild, the heavenly child." And then they went on eating. They were so ravenous. Hansel liked the taste of the roof so much that he pulled off a piece as long as his arm, and Gretel carefully pushed out another window pane and started crunching her way through it. Suddenly the door opened, and an old woman came hobbling out. Hansel and Gretel were so surprised that they stopped eating and stared at her with their mouths full. Give me a second. That saying about the wind so wild, the heavenly child? But the little old woman shook her head, said... But the old woman shook her head, said, "Well, that's gotta be a typo, or perhaps just the way that it is." But the old woman shook her head, said, "Don't be frightened, my little dears. Who brought you here? Just come inside, my darlings. Come and rest your poor selves in a little box of treats. It's as safe as houses." She pinched their cheeks fondly and took each of them by the hand and led them into the cottage. As if she'd known they were coming, there was a table laid out with two places, and she served them a delicious meal of milk and pancakes with sugar and spices and apples and nuts. After that she showed them into a little bedroom where two beds were made up ready, with snow-white sheets. Hansel and Gretel went to bed, thinking they were in heaven, and fell asleep at once. But the old woman had only pretended to be friendly. In fact, she was a wicked witch, and she had built her delicious house in order to lure children to her. Once she'd captured a child, whether a boy or a girl, she killed them, cooked them, and ate them. It was a feast day for her when that happened. Like other witches, she had red eyes and couldn't see very far, but she had a keen sense of smell, and she knew at once when humans were nearby. Once Hansel and Gretel were tucked up in bed. She laughed and rubbed her knobbly hands together. "I've got them now," she cackled. "They won't get away from me." Early next morning she got up and went to their room and looked up at the two of them lying there asleep. She could barely keep her hands from their full red cheeks. "Nice mouthfuls," she thought. Then she seized Hansel, and before he could utter a cry, she dragged him out of the cottage and into a little shed, where she shut him in a cage. He cried then all right, but there was no one to hear. Then the witch shook Gretel awake, saying, "Get up, you lump! Go and fetch some water from the well and cook something for your brother. He's in the shed, and I want him fattened up. When he's fat enough, I'm going to eat him." Gretel began to cry, but it was no good. She had to do everything the witch ordered. Hansel was given delicious food every day, while she had to live on crayfish shells. Every morning the witch limped down to the shed, leaning on her stick, and said to Hansel, "Boy, stick your finger out. I want to see if you're fat yet." But Hansel was too clever for that. He stuck a little bone through the bars, and the witch, peering through red eyes, thought it was his finger. She couldn't understand why he wasn't fat. 4 weeks went by, and she thought Hansel was still thin. But then she thought of his nice red cheeks, and she shouted to Gretel, "Hey, girl, go and fetch lots of water. Fill the cauldron and set it to boil. Fat or thin, skinny or plump, I'm going to slaughter that boy of yours tomorrow and boil him up for a stew." Poor Gretel, she wept and wept, but she had to fetch the water as the witch ordered. "Please, God, help us," she sobbed. "If only the wolves had eaten us in the forest, at least we'd have died together." "Stop your snivelling," said the witch. "It won't do you any good." In the morning Gretel had to light a fire under the oven. "We'll do the baking first," said the witch. "I've kneaded the dough already. Is that fire hot enough yet?" She dragged Gretel to the oven door. Flames were spitting and flaring under the iron floor. "Climb in and see if it's hot enough," said the witch. "Go on, in you go." Of course, the witch intended to shut the door when Gretel was inside and cook her as well, but Gretel saw what she was up to, so she said, "I don't quite understand. You want me to get inside? How can I do that?" "Stupid goose," said the witch. "Get out of the way. I'll show you. It's easy enough." And she bent down and put her head inside the oven. As soon as she did, Gretel shoved her so hard that she overbalanced and fell in. Gretel closed the door at once and secured it with an iron bar. Horrible shrieks and screams and howls came from the oven, but Gretel closed her ears and ran outside. The witch burned to death. Gretel ran straight to the shed and cried, "Hansel, we're safe! The old witch is dead!" Hansel leapt out as joyful as a bird that finds its cage open. They were so happy. They threw their arms around each other's necks. They hugged. They jumped for joy. They kissed each other's cheeks. There was nothing to fear any more, so they ran into the cottage and looked around. In every corner there were trunks and chests full of precious stones. "These are better than the pebbles," said Hansel, dropping some in his pocket. "I'll take some too," said Gretel, and filled her apron with them. "And now let's go," said Hansel. "Let's leave these witchy woods behind." After walking a few hours, they came to a lake. "It's going to be difficult to get across," said Hansel. "I can't see a bridge anywhere." "There aren't any boats either. But look," said Gretel. "There's a white duck. I'll see if she can help us get across." She called out, "Little duckling, little duck, be kind enough to bring us luck. The water's deep and cold and wide, and we must reach the other side." The little duck swam up to them, and Hansel climbed on her back. "Come on, Gretel," he said. "Climb on with me." "No," said Gretel. "That would be too much of a cargo. We should go one at a time." So the good little bird took them one after the other. When they were safely ashore again, they walked on further, and soon the forest began to grow familiar. At last they saw their home in the distance, and they ran up and rushed inside and threw themselves into their father's arms. The man hadn't had one happy moment since he'd left his children in the forest. Not long after that his wife had died, and he was all alone and poorer than ever. But now Gretel unfolded her little apron and shook out all the jewels so that they bounced and scattered all over the floor, and Hansel threw handful after them. So all their troubles were over, and they lived happily ever after. And slightly after this it says, "The mouse has run, my tale is done, and if you catch it, you can make yourself a great big furry hat." How pleasant. Oh dear. That was quaint. A solid 20 minutes. Very good. Let's see. I need to check a few things. And then we will read Chapter 10, The 3 Snake Leaves, which sounds just as pleasant. Okay. The 3 Snake Leaves. Ahem. Once there was a poor man who couldn't support his only son any more. When the son realized this, he said, "Father, it's no use my staying here. I'm just a burden to you. I'm going to leave home and see if I can earn a living." The father gave him his blessing, and they parted sorrowfully. The king of a nearby country was a powerful ruler, and at that time he was waging war. The young man enlisted in his army and soon found himself at the front, where a great battle was being fought. The bullets flew like hail, the danger was hideous, and his comrades were falling dead all around. When the general himself fell dead, the last of the troops were going to flee, but the young man took his place and yelled, "We won't be defeated! Follow me, and God save the king!" The men followed him as he led the charge, and they soon had the enemy on the run. When the king heard of the young man's part in the victory, he promoted him to field marshal, gave him gold and treasure, and bestowed on him the highest honors in the kingdom. Now the king had a daughter who was very beautiful, but she had one strange obsession. She had sworn an oath not to marry any man unless he promised to let himself be buried alive with her if she died first. "After all, if he really loves me," she said, "why would he want to go on living?" And she said that she would do the same and be buried with him if he was the first to die. Well, that's a little intense, but I guess, The grim condition had put off many young men who would otherwise have begged to marry her, but the soldier was so struck by her beauty that nothing would discourage him. So he asked the king for her hand. "Do you know what you must promise?" said the king. "If she dies before me, I must go to the grave with her," said the soldier, "but I love her so much that I'm willing to risk that." The king consented, and the wedding was celebrated with great splendor. Quite gruesome, yes, Sandrina. For a while they lived together happily, but one day the princess fell ill. The doctors came from all over the kingdom, but none of them could help her, and presently she died. And then the young soldier remembered the promise he'd had to make, and shuddered. There was no way of getting out of it, even if he'd wanted to break the promise, because the king was going to put sentries at the grave itself, and all around the cemetery in case he tried to escape. When the day came for the princess to be buried, they carried her body to the royal vault, made sure that the young man was inside, and the king personally locked and bolted the door. They had put some provisions in there. On a table there were 4 candles, 4 loaves of bread, and 4 bottles of wine. The soldier sat there beside the princess's body day after day, taking only a mouthful of bread and a sip of wine, making them last as long as possible. When he'd taken the last sip but one, and eaten the last mouthful but one, and when the last candle was down to its last inch, he knew that his time had nearly come. But as he sat there in despair, he saw a snake crawl out of a corner of the vault and move towards the body. Thinking it intended to eat her, the young man drew his sword. "While I live, you shan't touch her," he said, and struck the snake 3 times, cutting it to pieces. Shortly afterwards, a second snake came crawling out of the corner. It came to the body of the first snake, and looked at it, piece by piece, and then crawled away again. Soon it came back, and this time it had 3 green leaves in its mouth. Carefully moving the first snake's body together again, it laid a leaf on each of the wounds, and in a moment the dead snake stirred into life, the wounds closed up, and it was whole again. The 2 snakes hurried away together. But the leaves were still lying where they'd left them, and the young man thought that if their miraculous power had brought the snake back to life, it might do the same. I forgot to remove this text from the screen. My bad. It might do the same for a human being. So he picked up the leaves and laid them on the dead princess's white face, one on her mouth, and the other two on her eyes. And as soon as he did this, her blood began to stir. A healthy pink came into her cheeks, and she drew a breath and opened her eyes. "God in heaven," she said, "where am I?" "You're with me, my dear wife," said the soldier, and told her all that had happened. He gave her the very last mouthful of bread, and the very last sip of wine, and then they banged on the door and shouted so loudly that the sentries outside heard them and went running to the king. The king came to the graveyard himself and personally unlocked and unbolted the door of the vault. The princess tumbled into his arms, he shook the young man's hand, and everyone rejoiced at the miracle that had brought her back to life. As for the snake leaves, the soldier was a careful man, and he told no one about how the princess had been revived. But he had an honest and reliable servant, so he gave this servant the 3 snake leaves to look after. "Take good care of them," he said, "and make sure you keep them with you wherever you go. You never know when we might need them again." Now, after she was brought back to life, a change came over the princess. All the love she had for her husband drained away from her heart. She still pretended to love him, however, and when he suggested making a sea voyage to visit his old father, she agreed at once. "What a pleasure it will be to meet the noble father of my dearest husband," she said. But once at sea she forgot the great devotion the young man had shown her, because she felt a lust growing in her for the captain of the ship. Nothing would satisfy her but to sleep with him, and soon they were lovers. One night in his arms she whispered, "Oh, if only my husband were dead, what a marriage we two would make." "That is easily arranged," said the captain. He took a length of cord, and, with the princess at his side, crept into the cabin where the young man was sleeping. The princess held one end of the cord, and the captain wound the other around her husband's neck. And then they pulled so hard that, struggle as he might, he couldn't fight them off, and soon they had strangled him. The princess took her dead husband by the head, and the captain took him by the feet, and they threw him over the ship's rail. "Let's go home now," said the princess. "I'll tell my father that he died at sea, and I'll sing your praises, and he'll let us be married, and you can inherit the kingdom." But the faithful servant had seen everything they'd done, and as soon as their backs were turned, he untied a boat from the ship and rowed back in search of his master's body. Oh, it's bedtime, isn't it? He soon found it, and after hauling it into the boat, he untied the cord from around the young man's neck and put the 3 snake leaves on his eyes and mouth, and he came back to life at once. Then the 2 of them rowed with all their might. Day and night they rowed, stopping for nothing, and their boat flew over the waves so fast that they reached the shore a day before the ship, and went straight to the palace. The king was amazed to see them. "What happened?" he said. "Where's my daughter?" They told him everything, and he was shocked to hear of his daughter's treachery. "I can't believe she'd do such a terrible thing," he said, "but the truth will soon come to light." And so it did. Very soon the ship arrived at the port, and on hearing of this, the king made the young man and his servant wait in a hidden room, where they could listen to everything that was said. The princess, dressed all in black, came sobbing to her father. "Why have you come back alone?" he said. "Where's your husband, and why are you wearing mourning?" "Oh, father dear," she said, "I'm inconsolable. My husband took ill with the yellow fever and died. The captain and I had to bury him at sea. If he hadn't helped me, I don't know what I would have done. But the captain's such a good man. He looked after my dear husband when the fever was at its height, no matter what the danger. He can tell you all about it." "Oh, your husband's dead, is he?" said the king. "Let's see if I can bring him back to life." And he opened the door and invited the other 2 to come out. When the princess saw the young man, she fell to the ground as if she'd been struck by lightning. She tried to say that her husband must have been hallucinating in his fever, that he must have fallen into a coma so deep they mistook it for death, but the servant produced the cord, and in the face of that evidence, she had to admit her guilt. "Yes, we did it," she sobbed, "but please, father, show some mercy." "Don't speak to me of mercy," said the king. "Your husband was ready to die in the grave with you, and he gave you back your life, but you killed him in his sleep. You'll get the punishment you deserve." And she and the captain were put on board a ship with holes drilled into the hull and sent out over the stormy sea. Soon they sank with the ship and were never seen again. Okay, all right. We can vibe with that. Think that that's the limit of my mental capacity here, though, for the night. So that sure is something, though, isn't it? Yikes! Quite interesting. Well, death in every story. Hansel and Gretel's witch was burned alive, and the captain and the princess were drowned alive. It's the way things go, isn't it? But I'd like to thank you all for being here and enjoying this oddly background that I'm going to be switching probably eventually. Hello, cat. Welcome. Greetings, and good to see you. Thank you for being here. And who else is here? Let's see, Alexis, Alien Gathering, Katsu, Commander Root, Joint Effort, Quill, Sansavaria. It's good to have you here as well. Saralna, Sophia, thank you all for being here. I'm so pleased. Didn't mind the scenery? It was okay, it was alright. That's all, crack in the sky we didn't quite get to see. Well, that's good. I'll have to find a way to make it less I'll probably move it over to my other monitor so that I can like look here at the chat and not look over here for the chat. That'd be good. And I'm glad you liked it. I might try it some more, but we'll see. As for now, I am going to head out. And again, thank you so much for being here. And I hope that each of you have a most wonderful evening. And I'm going to see you next time, which might be tomorrow or the next day. We'll see. I'll send the invites as such. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Good night. Wow.